Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from StepByStepPainting.net, and this acrylic painting tutorial is a highly customizable painting that you can do for yourself if you're a teacher or for your favorite teacher. You can customize the cup with grade level subject matter. You can customize the name, of course. You can customize the color, customize the border. There's so many fun, different creative things. You can even customize the inside of the cup. So many fun, creative things you can do with this painting. And I'm going to show you right now, step by step, how to do a painting like this. So I am working on a black canvas. So this is a flat canvas, but you can certainly do this on the framed canvas if you want. And I just went ahead and painted a canvas. This is 11 by 14. I painted it black. I used Mars black acrylic paint, just added one layer of black paint to the entire canvas. And I'm going to do the border. So this painting has a white border with cute rainbow polka dots on the outside. And of course you can customize the border. If you don't want to do rainbow dots, you can do something else or even a solid color. And to do the border, I laid painter's tape along the edges. So I'm creating this border right now. I'm using just regular painter's tape that I like. I just need the flat edge. So I ripped the thick piece of tape in half and I'm just using the flat edge to create that straight line. And I'm estimating about 3/4 inch from the edge of the canvas. So you can do the same or you can estimate it. It doesn't have to be perfect. If the border's kind of flawed, it still kind of adds to the uniqueness of it. But you're just gonna lay out your border with the painter's tape. About 3/4 inches. You can make it smaller or larger if you want. Again, there's going to be a lot of options with this painting. You can also do this the opposite way. You could leave the border white and just paint the inside of it black. If that makes more sense to you, you can do it that way. And then, so I'm just going to take acrylic paint. So this is titanium white acrylic paint and a 3/4 wash brush. And I'm just going to paint the border a solid coat of white. So all along the outside, make sure that the paint tape line is nice and flat on that canvas, and just the white should cover nicely. It's a very opaque color. I only needed one layer of this white. Again, you can customize this color if your favorite teacher's favorite color is purple, or if you want to experiment with some kind of different design for the border, that's definitely an option. And we get that all covered with the titanium white. If you're working on a stretched canvas, you can also add things to the sides of the canvas, but this one's a flat canvas, so there's no sides to work on. So that gives you another creative element if your canvas is the 3D framed canvas. And also, like I said earlier, if it makes more sense to you to leave the border blank and white and just paint the inner frame part, you can do it that way. I just did it this way because my canvas was already painted black. And get this, make sure all of that is covered. And then I didn't wait for this to dry to peel the tape off. If you want to wait for it to dry, you can, or you can very carefully peel your tape off. I did end up smudging some of the white on the inner part, but that can always be touched up with black paint if you accidentally smudge, or even if some of that white paint kind of seeped under your painter's tape, you can always touch that up a little bit with some more black paint. Then you want to make sure everything is dry before going on to the next step. We'll be painting the gray faux wood table on the bottom that our cup and apple are sitting on. So you'll need to freshen up your titanium white and also add some Mars black to your paint palette if you don't already have black on your palette. You want to rinse off your 3/4 wash brush, and we're going to triple load this brush. So I'm going to load it in the white and load both of the corners in Mars black. And I'm going to start at the bottom and do left and right strokes, and you will find immediately your color starts turning a streaky gray color because the white and the blacks are blending together. So I decided to lay a T-square ruler on the left side of, well, going horizontal on the canvas just to help me block out that line. You can do the same if you have a T-square. You can also use the painter's tape again, lay a piece of painter's tape along there horizontally so that you can block out that line. You could even, if you want it to be like super crisp and neat, you can lay your painter's tape on the bottom to block out the border and on the vertical parts, but I didn't do that. I just tried to be really careful as I'm painting my brush down there, and just horizontal strokes. You just want to gently blend your white and black together. It'll create a kind of a blended faux wood look, like a gray table. And I'll just switch my T-square to the other side, wiping that paint off so it doesn't smudge, and doing the same thing. If you have black from the background still showing through, that is okay to have that. That just kind of helps with that wood look. If that part, some of it stays kind of black, that's okay. You can use the tip of the brush to really get into the corner areas of this. So get it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. If your table line is kind of lopsided or curved, that is okay. We're not trying to make this super perfect. Just doing a few streaks of white in there using the tip of the brush. And you could do the same for black if you want to darken the table. But I went for kind of a light to medium gray so that it would show up nicely against the black background. So when you're done with the table, you can go ahead and rinse your brush off and set it to the side. I am going to show you how to draw the cup and the apple. So I'm going to hand draw those items, including the items that are inside the cup. There is a traceable for this painting, so if you don't want to do the drawing, you can simply download the traceable and use graphite paper. I'd recommend using the white graphite paper so that the drawing shows up against the black background. An alternative to that would be to use the black graphite paper, transfer the design to the canvas first, and then paint the black around your items, so you can do it the opposite way. I am using a white chalk pencil to do this drawing, and I'm going to start on the left a little bit above the center of the canvas. So this is not quite center, it's a little bit above the center. And I'm going to draw a narrow oval opening for the opening of the cup. This is about 3.5 inches wide. And then inside the opening, I'm going to do another little curve. That's going to help us do the inner part of the cup where we start painting darker colors. And then I'm going to start sketching the sides of the cup, so it kind of goes down vertical, but then it curves towards the bottom. So the bottom of the cup is a little bit curved, but also a little bit flat on the very bottom. And to make this symmetrical, I'm doing the same kind of line, but opposite. The cup is positioned about in the center part of our table line. And if I were to measure the height of the cup, it would be about 5 inches from the base of the cup to the top part of the opening is about 5 inches. And then I'm going to sketch the handle. So the handle starts at the top left towards almost the very, very top of the opening, and it goes down to below the center point. So just sketching a handle, a little curve on the side of the handle. And then we have our basic cup design. Of course, this can be adjusted when it's time to paint it in because this chalk pencil does erase. And then I'm going to sketch an apple on the right side of the cup. So this apple is shorter than the cup, so I'm going to start at the top and do like a little curvy sort of line thing. I'm going to sketch my apple to curved lines on each side that kind of go wide. The bottom of the apple is lined up with the bottom of the cup. The bottom of the apple is bumpy, so 2 little bumps on the bottom. And our stem, I'm going to do a little curve below that top curved line for our stem, where that stem is below. kind of gives that apple a little bit dimension when you put the stem below the top part of the line, and draw a leaf going out, and there is our basic apple shape. So for the insides of the cup, I am going to draw those after I paint my cup in, so I don't have to worry about painting over or behind my objects. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting my cup. I chose the color bright aqua green and turquoise for the cup. If you want to change the color, you can change it to whatever color you want. And I'm using a 12 bright brush. This is a little flat brush that's about a 1/4 inch wide. You can use a different size flat brush if you want. And I'm going to start by painting the cup. I'm going to start on the bottom, and I'm doing curved strokes. So I am utilizing that titanium white, and that's really important, especially if you're using a different color that might not show up against the black. If you load your color onto the brush and you also load titanium white as well, so you're double loading the brush with your color in the white, that is going to ensure that your color shows up against the dark canvas. So this black background, a lot of times colors don't show up bright enough against the black background, but using the white will make sure that it shows up nice and bright. So I'm doing curved strokes, and I'm not letting the white and aqua blend all the way. I kind of like that look where it's kind of like unblended. So I did curved strokes all in the middle, and I'll do the sides in just a little bit. And I'm going to define the back part of the cup by using the tip of the brush to outline that part and paint the part above that curved line. So remember when we did the drawing, there's that curved line. I'm going to paint above that, and I'm going to use the tip of the brush to outline that curved line below that. So we have the opening of the cup defined, and then we can start filling in the rest of the cups. So I'm going to do the inside opening of the cup. I am going to pick a color that is darker. So this is turquoise. It's a shade darker than my aqua, kind of a different kind of aqua, but it's still darker and it still can blend. So whatever color you're using, just find a color similar to it, but darker. So I'm using the turquoise on the same brush, and I'm blending it up into that lighter turquoise color, that aqua. So basically the inner part of the cup is darker as it goes towards the opening. So down here, it's a darker turquoise, and we can even add black in here later if necessary, if you need that to be even darker. So that's the dark part of the cup, and then the rim is our lighter part. So if you need to add your lighter color to your brush again to redefine your rim, you can. I'm going to add that lighter aqua to the top and just do another stroke at the top so that it's lighter and it blends down into our darker turquoise color. And then we can start painting the rest of the cup. So for the sides of the cup, you can turn your brush to the side and start painting more vertical strokes. So just kind of to define the shape of the cup, you can paint vertical, but then do your horizontal curvy strokes that go towards the edge of the cup. Again, not over blending the turquoise and the white together. And also I didn't rinse my brush off. So the turquoise, that other darker turquoise color, is now on my brush, but that's okay if I have a few bits of turquoise kind of showing up into this. So I'm just defining that side and doing curved strokes for the rest of the cup that gives that cup dimension when you do the curved strokes. And then you want to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So doing the tip of the brush to outline the edge of the cup, and then doing your curved strokes in the middle. So you outline and then curve to fill in the rest of the cup. White and turquoise and white and aqua for color variation. You don't have to blend your colors all the way. For the handle of the mug, I am going to be using a round brush. So I'm going to rinse my 12 bright brush off and set it to the side. And I'm going to grab a number 4 round brush. So the round brush is helpful for getting this curve shape painted in, and I'll be using more of that darker color just to give it some contrast. In fact, I'll go ahead and just mix my turquoise with my aqua together, so it's a little bit darker than the cup, but also it's not too dark, so it'll show up against the black canvas. Also, if it's not going to show up, you can add a little bit of white to it so that it does show up against the black canvas. But basically, I'm just going to paint that shape of the handle in. Before this dries, I'm going to grab a little bit of white on the tip of my brush and kind of do a highlight. I'll do another highlight later if it doesn't show up brighter. So that white will blend with that turquoise if it's not dry. On the upper left part of the mug, I also did a very subtle highlight. Again, this brush isn't rinsed, so it's already mixing with that turquoise that's on my brush. I did a little curve on the lower left part of the cup with the white. Kind of curves and kind of fades away, gives that cup a little bit more dimension. If yours just blended in with the blue, you can wait for that to dry and do your highlight in a later step. Next, I want to kind of make my opening of the cup a little bit darker towards the bottom, and I'm going to mix black with turquoise. So a teeny bit of black mixed with the turquoise is going to make that color extra dark. It's going to make a shade of that color. I'm going to add it to the bottom of the cup, and I want that to fade out towards the top. So the bottom part of the opening, just above the rim in front, is the darkest part of the cup, and then it gets lighter and blends to that lighter aqua color at the top, and that is going to make your cup look 3D-ish and give it shadow in the inside of the cup. I can take that black and kind of loosely outline the very, very bottom part of that. Blend that up just a little bit so it's just a tad bit darker right on the bottom part of the inside opening. I can also loosely outline some of the bottom part of the cup and also do the shadow. So there's not a lot of black on the tip of my brush, just barely grazing the canvas as I do this shadow. Left and right kind of curved strokes. If some turquoise is showing up in your shadow, that's fine. It's just barely grazing that. Very dry brush style. You don't need a lot of detailed shadow, just a little bit of dark in that area, enough to make it look like that cup is casting shadow on your table. We are going to do the apple next. So with the apple, another thing you can customize, so you can do a green apple or a yellow apple if you want. I'm going to do the typical red apple, and I use the color Pyrrole Red for this apple. Pyrrole Red is a bright color that tends to be opaque. A lot of reds don't show up opaque, but this one does. If you don't have Pyrrole Red, you could do the double loading thing, but keep in mind if you double load your red in the white, it might turn pink, depending on the red that you choose. So I would recommend painting the apple white first, and then after that dries, doing your red color. That's if your color red does not give good coverage. So that is Pyrrole Red by Liquitex Basics, and I'll use my number 4 round brush for this because round brush is easier to use for these curvy shapes. If you want to start out with the flat brush and then use the round brush later for the edges, you can do it that way. And basically, I'm going to just paint the apple in red, but I will be doing highlight and shadowing, of course. If you want to simplify this and not do highlighting and shadowing with your apple, that is perfectly fine too. If that's a little bit of intimidating for you, you don't have to do that. And the same goes for the cup. If you didn't want to do highlighting or shadowing with the cup, you could just do it solid color as well. So I'm doing what's called contouring this shape in. Basically, it just means I'm painting with my strokes going in a curvy direction. So the shape of the apple is formed by these curves. So the curve on the outside, The sides are curved. Kind of when I get into the middle, my curves are might be going more vertical or more like circular. And just painting that in, curvy, kind of more vertical in the center, but then on the outsides, they curve kind of opposite directions and really define that outer shape. So really outline that shape of the apple to make sure that it's all defined. Notice how I'm not filling in all of my chalk drawing lines, and I always do that on purpose because my drawing is meant to be a guideline, and sometimes when I paint, it may not, like I decided this apple had a little bit smaller shape, so I didn't paint it all in. Your chalk line will erase in a later step if you choose to not follow your chalk lines exactly. So to start highlighting this apple, we can grab some titanium white on our brush. So I just grabbed a little bit of white on the tip of the brush, kind of brushed it out on the palette. This is going to lighten your red. And this is only going to be a subtle difference because that is blending very quickly with that red. So I'm just doing that top curve part of the apple that's below the stem. So I made that just a tad bit lighter. On the left, I'm going to do a bolder sort of highlight. So I did that one stroke really quickly. Did one on the right as well. The left one's a little bit longer, the right one's a little bit shorter. So it's going to blend with the red a little bit, and that's fine. If you want it to be brighter, you can wait for that to dry and then go over that with another coat of white so it shows up better. But just a quick one stroke bright white line is enough to give it that simple highlight. Then for the shadow of the apple, I used green. So green and red, because they're opposite colors from each other. Green is a good color to shadow your red with. And we'll be using the green for the leaf as well. So I used the color Hooker's Green Hue Permanent. If you don't have that exact shade of green, you can use literally any green that you have available. So load that onto your palette. Then grab your number 4 round brush. So this is rinsed off and dried, and we're going to mix green and red together. So I'm going to grab green and red, about equal amounts of green and red, maybe a little bit more red than green. And then take that color and apply that to the bottom of your apple and kind of blend it up. So that is going to give your apple a darker color towards the bottom. Add a little bit at the top. So the top part that's going to be behind the stem is a little bit more shadowy, and just a few like expressive strokes kind of in the middle, but we don't want to make it drastic and super dark compared to the rest of the apple. So it should just be kind of a subtle sort of darkness of it, which is what the green essentially does when we mix it with the red. Then I'm going to paint the shadow that the apple is casting on the table, and I did that with Mars Black. So the same thing that I did with the mug, I'm going to do the same thing with the apple. Loading only a teeny tiny amount of black on my brush, kind of dry brush style. This shouldn't be thick or super opaque. It's very thin, kind of scratchy, because there's not a lot of paint on my brush, just a little kind of blob area below the apple. If you want, you could loosely kind of outline the bottom part of the apple, but just a very, very subtle shadow towards the bottom. And then I quickly went ahead and kind of redefined the bottom 2 little bumps on the bottom of our apple. So next we're going to go ahead and paint the leaf and the stem. So I'll go ahead and rinse my brush off and grab some fresh green. And then because green is the dark color, so you can see that it shows up but not very bright, you can grab your titanium white and mix that with the green and it will show up lighter. So I'm just taking that white and just kind of blending it into the green. So some of the areas are dark, some are lighter because of the way the white blended with the green. For the stem, we can use the color Burnt Umber. You can use literally any brown for the stem. I just happened to grab Burnt Umber. And you want to go ahead and mix white into your brown so that it is light. So I'm just kind of mixing that white with the brown, a little bit extra brown in there to make it so it's not too light. And then do the little curve or the little oval at the top of the stem. The stem itself, I added a little bit more brown, so that would be darker. So just doing a line down to that curved part of the apple that's below the top, so next to the leaf. Adding a little bit more darker brown on one side. A little bit of white at the top gives that the little pop of color. Brighter color also makes that stem look 3D. A little tiny highlight on the left side brightens that stem up a bit. So next, I am going to go ahead and draw the items that are inside of the cup. This is another part of the painting that you can customize. And basically, I'm going to do a pencil, a crayon, paintbrush, and a ruler, starting with a pencil. So I'm using a ruler to really help me with these straight lines for our pencil. So the pencil just has like these two diagonal lines, and they're kind of going at the same angle inside the cup. And I can do like a little triangle piece at the top that goes to a point, and then I could curve the line below, so a little curved line right here. And I don't have to draw details on this pencil because when I paint it in, I can paint those details in later. We just need the outer shape. If you're working with the traceable, so your design will already be showing up, you might have painted over part of the drawing where we did the inside of the cup. You can probably just take a white pencil or just a regular pencil and extend those lines down if that's helpful. And I did a paintbrush, so the paintbrush has like a little teardrop shape, and the little ferrule part of the brush and the handle that's also going diagonal, using the ruler to help with those lines. And then I did a little crayon over here. The crayon doesn't have a point, it's flat at the top, so like a triangle, but the flat part is cut off. Two curved lines for the top part of the crayon, and then again vertical line or diagonal lines going down into the cup. So each of these objects touch the bottom part of the rim of the cup, so where that opening is, to make it look like those objects are inside of the cup. I also did a ruler, so just a really basic rectangular shape, and some of these are overlapping, and that's okay. And then we can start painting the school supplies in. So I'm going to start with the crayon, and I used Cobalt Blue for that, and also titanium white. So just like with the other colors we had to do, you want to utilize your titanium white to double load that color in your brush so that it shows up against the black background. So I'm going to just paint the little crayon opening. So there's the tip of our crayon, and then I can grab some more blue. This part I can make darker, so create a little bit of contrast with that crayon by altering how much white or how much pure blue I'm adding to the brush, so it's not all the same color throughout. And then I can paint the rest of the crayon, so kind of going in the direction of the shape, outlining that with straight lines, and I'll just paint it in that way as well. So we don't have to get too detailed or realistic with the supplies that are inside the cup, just very basic. One thing that helped me when I was doing this painting was to Google clip art. So I typed in crayon clip art to give examples of basic crayons, not realistic photographs of crayons, but like drawing graphic representations of a crayon. And so that really helps to simplify your painting so that you're not overwhelmed trying to make it look real. Same thing with the pencil and the ruler and the brush. So if you wanted scissors in your cup, you can Google scissor clip art or school supply clip art to get different ideas of things that you can add inside of your cup. So then I'm going to move along to the next item. I'll be adding yellow to my palette because I'll be using yellow in the pencil as well as the ruler. So this is Cadmium Yellow Medium Hue. Again, if you don't have that exact shade of color, you can use literally any yellow. Yellow is also a color that tends to be see-through and not show up bright, so we definitely need to use the white for that. So for the ruler, I double loaded my yellow in yellow and white, still using the 4 round brush, and I'm just painting that rectangular shape in solid with that yellow. You might need a second coat because yellow is just, it's hard to get it to show up bright against black. So even though I'm using the white, it's still a little bit dull. So after this dries, I will go and add a second coat over it. If you find that the color from your cup is showing through your paint, you can add just a little bit extra white towards the bottom. So a little pop of white right there down on the ruler is going to ensure that we have coverage over that dark inner opening that we're painting over. I'm going to move along to the next item. I'll be painting the pencil in. So the pencil I want to make kind of an orange yellow color. So I'm going to make that color by adding a little bit of red into my yellow set so that it turns more of a yellow orange color. And then I'll go ahead and start painting that pencil in. So when I made this yellow orange color, I didn't mix the yellow and the red all the way, so that when I paint it, it's going to give me a little bit of color variation, so that yellow is kind of blending on the canvas with that red. We might need more white for this because some of that color is showing through, unless you want a see-through clear type of pencil. We're going to need to add some white to this as well. Grab a little bit more yellow to make that a little bit more of a yellow color and less of a red-orange color. And then I'll go ahead and grab some white on my brush and distribute that white in there. You can see how that white is brightening my color up, but also making it so that pencil isn't so see-through. For the lead part of the pencil, that opening sort of wood part where that lead is, I'm going to use the brown and whatever's on my brush. So I mix brown with the red and the yellow and some white to lighten that color up, just so it's a lighter color than the actual pencil part. And so I'm just painting that part in, and then we can use the black. So since our background's black, the black isn't going to show up black on black. So I made a gray, and that gray showed up. So you can mix white and black together to make a gray, and that gray will show up for your pencil lead. And then I started to do the little lines, but because my paint wasn't dry, it kind of like smeared with the yellow and orange. I didn't really like what happened there. So I'm going to touch that up later, grabbing white and yellow and just kind of going back over that to readjust that. It got a little bit messy right there. So if you want the lines on your pencil, I would recommend that you let that layer of paint dry. And then the round brush might be too thick to do those little fine lines. You can use a black paint pen for that if you wanted to have those little lines. But I'm just going to kind of leave it like that for now and use a paint pen later to do some of the detail work of the pencil. So we're going to move along to the brush, and I decided to do the brush handle green. So add a little bit more green to the painting since we had green in our apple leaf. And so I just mixed green and white together about equal amounts so that it will be light and show up. So I did the green. This brush is going behind our crayon and behind our ruler, so kind of an awkward diagonal line. I'm trying not to paint over the ruler, but if we needed to paint over the ruler, that's fine. So there's the handle. For the ferrule part of the brush, I used more of a white color so that would stand out. So grabbing titanium white and doing that little metal piece that's below the bristles, just did like these curved lines. Again, very basic, not going for realism with any of these supplies. They're very much clip art style drawings that we're painting in. And then we can do the bristles. So same thing with the bristles. We can't do black bristles, but we can do gray or brown if you wanted them to be brown. So I did gray. And then after this dried, I added some red on it to make it look like there is paint attached to this paintbrush. So just kind of letting that black and white kind of blend gently together, but not blend all the way together. I did just load my palette with some more of that yellow, and I'm going to go ahead and do a second coat over my ruler to make sure that this is nice and solid and opaque. I'm using the 12 bright brush to do that second coat. And then I'm adding a little bit more yellow to my pencil, kind of using the tip of the brush to do lines to kind of get that line texture in there some more. But also making sure I have enough coverage over that black and over that part of the opening of the cup. Next, I'm going to do a little bit more detail work, and I'm going to do a little bit of highlighting on my pencil and crayon. So using the 4 round brush in titanium white. So over here on the left, I did a very subtle white line, and that helped to make that part pop a little bit so we can see the lead better on the pencil. I did the same thing with the crayon, just on one side of the crayon, just a very subtle loose outline on the left side. Gives it some highlight, but also helps that item pop a little bit better, give it some more contrast. And then I did some detail work on the crayon itself. So the black part, I did like an oval thing in the center part, and then a wavy line towards the top part. So this would be the paper part of the crayon that's kind of wrapped around that wax piece. And then we don't have to write Crayola or blue or anything on that. Does not have to be that detailed. And then just kind of loosely outline this bottom part of the cup with black. Really makes it look like those items are inside of our cup. You can also use your black for the negative space around your items. So like right here with the crayon, I just wanted to like go ahead around that crayon tip to kind of make sure that was nice and defined and flat at the top. So I just used the black to paint that negative space around it. Same if the pencil or any of the other items, you can use the black to touch up the outer parts of your objects as well. If you have chalk pencil lines still showing, you can erase it. Just make sure your painting is dry where you're erasing it so you don't accidentally smudge anything that you painted. So you can kind of clean that up a little bit. We are moving along with this painting. We have all of the major things in, and now we just have the fun little decorative things to add. So you don't have to do a heart on your mug. You can do literally anything. So if it's an art teacher, you can do like a paint palette. If it's like a specialized teacher like PE or music, or if your teacher loves frogs, you can do a little cute frog on the mug. So a heart is pretty standard, and it's simple enough. So I did a heart with the Cobalt Blue and titanium white and just kind of let those colors blend together, painted a simple heart in the center. And then I'm going to utilize this paint pen. You can also use a black Sharpie for this. Sharpie does go on acrylic paints if you want to do that instead. But I'm doing the little numbers for the ruler, so I just estimated this. I did 1, 2, and 3, and then the little large lines and the little small tick mark lines. Again, this is clip art style. It does not have to be realistic, so your measurements don't have to be realistic either. And then I also used the paint pen for some of these lines on the pencil. I tried something here, but my paint wasn't dry over here, so it kind of smudged it a little. But if you really wanted those lines on your pencil, just make sure that it's dry before adding a few of those lines. But I think the pencil looks fine as it is. I also did a few touch-up highlights. So I already have these highlights on here, but I wanted to make the left part of the handle of the mug a little bit brighter, so I added a second coat over that one. And same with the left part of the apple, a second coat on the left part of the apple on that one as well. I also did little white dots on the heart. Again, feel free to customize color designs, something different if you don't want a polka dot heart. I did a very loose white line on the part of the opening. So there's already a black line there, but I did a white one just below it, and then a little bit of highlighting on the ruler as well. Little highlight on the left side of the leaf of the apple, a little bit on the left side of the crayon. This gets all of our little objects to stand out against our dark background. I added some red paint on the tip of the paintbrush. And next, I'm going to show you how I did the border of the painting. So I used these little cylindrical sponges called Pouncers, foam Pouncers, and you can get them at a craft store or Amazon. And basically I did that to create all the little circles. You can definitely do this with a paintbrush if you don't have a foam circle stamp, but I started by making a light green. So I mixed the white with the Hooker's green color to make it light, and I just dipped it in that color, and I'm pressing and I'm turning very light colored circle dots. This one, I didn't have a smaller one with me, but a smaller one probably would have worked better so that some of the circles showed up all the way on the border, but that's okay. We can have some circles that are hanging off on the side or half circles. So to switch your color, you can just wipe it off with the towel. I did find that using a baby wipe helped tremendously when switching colors, because the baby wipe at least kind of wiped off that color in between colors. So you're just pressing and turning. So you can use whatever colors are left on your palette so that you can just not waste paint. You can use whatever's left. You can add new colors to your palette. So if you want to do pink dots or whatever color you want, I just went with the whole rainbow theme. So I did almost all the colors of the rainbow except purple, and just pressing and turning. Wipe it off with the baby wipe in between colors. So you can do yellow. If you want to make a dot that is going this way, you can get a piece of paper and use the side of the paper to kind of mask that so that your dot doesn't go into your main painted area. So you're just pressing, turning, and creating all sorts of colors. We can add turquoise in here. Didn't do any orange dots either, so I did all the colors of the rainbow besides orange and purple. And finally, the last thing we're going to do with this painting is do our name. So if this is for you, you can do your name, or if it's for another teacher, you can do his or her name. So I found that if it's a shorter name, you can fit it all in one line. Like if it's Miss Smith, you can probably fit it all in one line. However, if it's a longer last name, you can do the Mr., Miss, Mrs. part at the top, and then the name on the bottom. So I'm going to do Miss Cunningham as an example, kind of a longer last name. So the good thing about writing it out with chalk pencil first is you want to ensure that you have enough room. So this one got kind of crowded on the end, so I'm going to have to erase that and kind of redo it and make it go more to the left. The cup itself, you can definitely write that out with pencil first if you feel more comfortable doing that, but I just took my paint pen and wrote 2nd grade. So this is also where you can customize this by grade. If it's not a grade, if it's like a special area subject like art, you can do art. You can do special education, speech therapy, or whatever specialty this is. You can do that preschool, whatever word number you want to fit on the cup, you're welcome to do that. So then we can go ahead and paint this in. I used the round brush and titanium white paint. I did find with this 4 round brush, it was a little thick. Some of these letters are really kind of small and close together. The M wasn't so bad, but some of these other letters was a little bit too kind of crowded. If you're finding the same thing, you can try the white paint pen. The one reason I didn't use the white paint pen for this is because the Posca white paint pens don't show up as bright as titanium white paint. But if you feel more comfortable using a white paint pen, you can. You can use a smaller brush if that seems to make more sense to you, to use a smaller brush. You could even try like a different color paint pen or like a chalk pen maybe. That might show up nice and bright. But I went ahead and erased my original word and moved it a little bit more to the left. And I'm still going to do Mrs. Cunningham, but making sure that this is going to fit. Just regular cursive handwriting. You can also do your lettering on the computer. Like you can open up a Word document and find a font that you like, and then you can print that out and use that as a template and use graphite paper below that if you want to have some specialized handwriting based on like what the computer font shows. That's something that you can customize as well, but I found it more personable just to do basic cursive handwriting. Makes it look more like a painting, something very special. And I'm just going to finish that. I do like to go over some of my letters and kind of touch them up, so maybe some of the lines are a little bit thicker in some areas. Lots of curves over here where that U and the N and the N are, making that C a little bit thicker. The nice thing about acrylic paint is if you mess up on the word, you can always let that dry, go back with your black paint and redo it. That's nothing to be concerned about. I did smudge it a little bit right there, so I can always just paint that over with black paint. But that is it. This is the conclusion of how to make a customizable teacher painting. Hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.